So I will talk now about the therapeutic goals of ACT. The overarching goal is psychological flexibility. And that is really defined by Stephen Hayes in his video ACT in Action as the ability to contact the present moment fully and without defense as a conscious human being. Engaged in life as it is, not what your mind says it is, based on what the situation affords, persisting or changing behavior in the service of your chosen values. So I think that really summarizes the therapeutic goal of ACT, but I will go through the 6 different concepts. The first one being acceptance. So, acceptance is really to be in active and direct contact with a psychological experience. So, an example of this would be if you're really anxious about something and you're sort of fearing or trying to avoid or fighting the anxiety. The acceptance part would be accepting that you're anxious about something and reframing the anxiety as not necessarily bad, but just an experience that you're having in life. There are many exercises used by ACT therapists to help achieve this goal. One is 1 minute of acceptance. So take something that's hard for you to accept and spend 1 minute just surrendering to it. Metaphors such as riding pain or emotions like waves as they come and just riding them out until they have passed. And then another example would be to write out a version of the Serenity Prayer and to sort of categorize what you can change in your life and what you don't really have any influence over, and learning to accept those things. The next principle is diffusion, which is to create space between our thoughts and our reactions to those thoughts, so to identify less with our thoughts. So an example that's used by ACT therapists for this is if you are driving a bus, the passengers make it on and off, and some of them may be more problematic than others, but they are all riding on the bus that you are driving. The driver is you, the passengers are your thoughts and emotions, and you can't necessarily kick them off the bus, but they are not you. You are the driver, and they are along for the ride. The next principle is contact with the present moment. So this is really just remaining present in the here and now, which our language and our thoughts sometimes keep us from doing. And examples of exercises that might be used to achieve this therapeutic goal would be mindfulness techniques such as a body scan, square breathing, and looking around and naming things that you can see or feel or smell or touch in the room. The next principle is self as context. So this means that the self is the context in which things are happening, um, instead of self as concept, which means that we are the observer, but we don't have to necessarily identify with a trait or an identity. Um, an example that's often used for this, or a metaphor that an ACT therapist may use to help clients um, understand this concept, is to imagine yourself as a game of chess. And the pieces on the board, some are on one team, some are on the other team. They may be sort of fighting against each other. And some of them you may see as good, and some of the pieces you may see as bad. And a lot of the time we identify with the pieces. But actually, we don't have to identify with the pieces. We could identify as the board. We are the board on which the game is happening, and we don't have to identify so strongly with the conflicts that are happening inside of us. And then moving over to the more commitment and behavior change skills that are proposed by this model, values and commitment. So values are really what you want your life to stand for. Um, they're not necessarily needs, desires, morals, virtues, or goals. They are more like points on our inner compass that orient us towards who we want to be and the kind of life we want to live. And once a client is able to identify their values through several exercises where they may look through a list of values and just find which ones they identify with most strongly, then they can take committed action, which are steps to move us in the direction of a life that is more in line with our values. Um, so the therapist may help the client think of concrete ways to move their life closer in line with their values. For example, it could be something very small. It could be I am committing to volunteering 1 day a month at an organization that means a lot to me, or I am committing to stretching for 15 minutes twice a week. It could start out very simple and kind of go out from there.